My name is Nadia Park, and I'm 29 years old. My favorite sound isn't music or laughter. It's the soft click a relay makes. When a system you wired yourself does exactly what you told it to do. I keep my life like my server room, labeled, backed up, and quietly resilient. I live in Columbus, Ohio, in a small 2-bedroom I paid off 5 months ago by doing the unglamorous things: buying used, meal prepping on Sundays, and driving a 2019 Camry that starts every time I ask her to. No debt, healthy retirement, nothing shiny, everything solid. My dad Hank taught me that. He spent 30 years bent over engines with work-ruined hands and a back that complains like weather. He used to say, "Looking rich is a hobby, being safe is a life." The first time I transferred the last mortgage payment, he hugged me with those wrecked hands and cried like he hadn't cried since Mom. Logan Pierce did not cry when he was happy. He negotiated with happiness until it posed well for a camera. He calls himself a brand stylist, which is mostly sponsored posts and a practice squint. 14,000 followers, curated brunches, jewel-toned cocktails held just so. His parents are the kind of wealthy that pass hors d'oeuvres like heirlooms. Diane plans corporate events for people who measure time in flights, and Victor consults on personal branding, which is a polite way of saying he talks about people as products. When Logan and I started dating, I thought we balanced each other. He brought color to my spreadsheets. I brought quiet to his noise. He'd show up at my door with concert tickets purchased on impulse, and I'd pack us foil-wrapped sandwiches because impulse still needs dinner. He called my thrifted coffee table vintage cute. At the time, I decided that meant he liked it. It did not mean that. It meant what it always means, that the table looked cheap. The first real hairline crack was at someone else's wedding. The ceremony was all chiffon and customized everything. During the reception, Logan held my hand and admired the bride's ring like it was a sunrise only he could afford. 3 carats at least, he said, voice warm with knowing. Classic. It holds value. I laughed and said something about tuition. He didn't laugh back. A quality ring is an investment, he said, with a tenderness that didn't match the word. It tells a story about the couple. It tells a story about the jeweler, I said lightly. He squeezed my fingers a little too tight. The next few weeks, he started forwarding me photos. Tiffany, Cartier, platinum settings that blinked like satellites on my phone. Timeless, one caption read. Photographs beautifully, read another. The numbers in the corner were all the same species. $20,000, $30,000. I showed the messages to my sister Ava, who has a counselor's calm and a surgeon's eye for what's rotten. She scrolled, then lifted a brow. He's testing you, she said. Don't pass a test you don't want to keep taking. I wanted to believe I was misreading it. Logan had grown up swimming in deep water. Maybe he didn't realize how cold it was. If I explained why I live the way I live, maybe we'd meet in the shallow end. Then we had dinner at his parents' house. The Pierce home is the kind of colonial that makes you whisper without being told. Diane's smile cut like ribbon. Victor's study smelled like leather and performance. We hadn't finished the soup when Diane asked, "So, have you two discussed engagement ring plans?" Victor leaned forward, delighted to be in his arena. A man's ring choice, he said, is a statement of values. Excellence recognizes excellence. I felt suddenly like a candidate, not a woman. I value Logan for who he is, I said, keeping my voice soft. Not the carats he can balance on my finger. Logan's face went bright red, the specific red of someone embarrassed by you, not for you. Diane's smile held, thinner. Victor blinked like he'd been misquoted by a child. The conversation shifted to dessert, but the air never softened. That night, Logan said I'd undercut him in front of his parents. It's a ring, he said, not a yacht. It's a symbol, I said. And symbols don't have to bankrupt their storytellers. A week later, Logan suggested we just look, no pressure, window shopping. He was gentle enough that the idea didn't scrape. I agreed. The boutique downtown knew what to do with light. Everything glittered like it was performing for a god. The associate, in a suit priced like rent, greeted Logan like a regular. Logan didn't browse. He walked straight to a case as if he'd GPS pinned it. This one, he said, pointing. It's perfect. The stone was a small moon. The plaque below it read like a dare. The associate placed it between us with both hands. 24,000, he announced. Flawless clarity. Excellent cut. Logan looked at me. smiling the way you smile in pictures. See? I saw the exact future Victor had advertised, a life where love is a ledger, and I pay admission with interest. I can't, I said. I made my voice the gentlest thing in the room. Not at that price, not for that reason. Silence, heavy as velvet. Logan's smile fell off like it had never belonged to him. You're cheap, he said, loud enough for the two couples behind us to hear. He didn't look at them. He looked only at me, like I'd failed an audition for the role of his fiancée. I felt the words pass through me and land somewhere I used to keep pride. I picked them up, dusted them, and set them back down where they belonged. If love costs $25,000 up front, I said, soft as a server fan, you can't afford me either. I turned and walked out. My legs remembered the path better than my head. In the car, my hands shook so hard I had to anchor them to my knees. Anger tasted metallic. Relief tasted clean. Grief tasted like the moment you realized the house you built together was load-bearing on a lie. On the drive home, I kept seeing it, Logan's face when the script didn't go the way he rehearsed it. A flicker of something older than us, something taut. It had the shape of Victor's voice and the glare of Diane's smile, and behind them, like a watermark, a name Logan had said once with a sigh that sounded like a sales pitch. Brielle. She always knew her worth, he'd said then, like worth had a price tag. At a red light, I opened the Notes app and typed a title, Logan Timeline. Date, boutique, quote, witnesses. Not because I wanted revenge, because I had the sudden, electrical feeling that this wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of whatever came after the word cheap landed. At home, the server in the spare room hummed like a heartbeat. I poured water, sat on the floor, and made the first of many folders. Screenshots, receipts, dates. I filmed a quiet video on my phone, just me, at my kitchen table, explaining to no one why a woman who could buy the ring still didn't want it. I didn't post it. Not yet. My father texted a photo of my mother's sapphire ring that he'd sent earlier without context, as if the universe wanted a punchline. I found this, he wrote. We'll talk soon. I stared at the small blue stone on his palm. No price. Just a life attached to it. I slept badly. Not because I was afraid of being alone. Because I suddenly understood I hadn't been with someone. Not really. I'd been with a brand. When morning came, it brought light and its ugly cousin, clarity. My phone pulsed with 3 new notifications, all from Instagram stories I wasn't supposed to see, but always would. Don't let the broke dim your sparkle. A photo of a red-rimmed eye, artfully lit. A quote tile about proof. I turned the volume down, the way you do when the noise is inside your head. Then I opened the folder I'd made and added a new note. Day 1, after. Document everything. Some stories you tell for love, some you tell for court. I didn't know which this would be yet, only that it would be both, a ledger and a testimony, a price and a proof, and that I was done auditioning. When people say it's over, they usually mean it's quiet now, but endings don't start quiet. They start loud, with notifications, rumors, and the small sounds of someone trying to rewrite the story before you can. 2 days after the boutique disaster, Logan went live. Not a direct call-out, just a raw, vulnerable talk about disappointment in modern relationships. His caption said things like, "Never let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting standards," and "Know your worth, even if they call it materialism." He filmed in front of our favorite cafe. I recognized the wall, the lighting, the mug I once bought him because the cafe's logo looked like a heartbeat. I realized I was watching my own history turned into content. I didn't comment, didn't message, but my phone started vibrating with other people's curiosity. Mutuals texted, asking, "Is this about you?" One of his followers even sent a DM that just said, "Girl, you dodged a bullet." That should have been the end of it. But when a person like Logan loses control of the narrative, they look for other scripts to edit. 3 weeks later, I was called into a sudden meeting at work. 2 chairs, my supervisor, and an HR representative with a manila folder already open. Someone filed an anonymous report, they said, that you've been using company servers to mine cryptocurrency. I blinked, confused laughter bubbling up before I realized no one else was laughing. Mining crypto? On the company network? I manage those networks. That would be like robbing a bank you built security for. They took my laptop for forensic auditing, suspended my access, and sent me home pending investigation. 3 days of silence. 3 days of staring at my ceiling, cataloging every way this could go wrong. My career, my reputation, my name. When HR called back, their tone had shifted from suspicion to apology. They found nothing. Every trace log was clean. They even sent a formal clearance letter for record integrity. I asked if they could identify the anonymous source. They couldn't. Whoever sent the email had routed it through a privacy service. I didn't need confirmation. I knew. I'd seen how Logan researched hashtags when he wanted to make something go viral. He'd know exactly how to hide his fingerprints, too. That night, my sister Ava came over with her crisis tea, peppermint and honey, and the exact expression she used for her most troubled students. "You need to document this," she said. "Everything. Dates, screenshots, that HR letter, because he's not done." She was right. The next morning, my inbox chimed with an email from Logan Pierce. Subject line, formal reimbursement request. Attached, a spreadsheet. He had listed, item by item, every cent he claimed to have invested in our relationship. Gas to visit me, haircuts before dates, makeup, outfits purchased specifically for appearances involving Nadia's family, even my birthday gifts. Each row had a description, a cost, and a column titled Emotional Labor, Estimated Value. The total, $3,980. At the bottom, he'd written, "Given that our relationship did not result in the long-term commitment I invested toward, I believe reimbursement is both ethical and fair." I read it 3 times. The first with disbelief, the second with fury, the third with something colder, realization. He wasn't losing control, he was rebranding. He'd turned our breakup into a business dispute. I forwarded the email to Ava without commentary. She called 5 minutes later. "Don't reply," she said. "Not even a joke. Lawyer, now." It felt ridiculous. I'd never hired a lawyer for anything. I barely had parking tickets. But when I recited everything, the HR report, the spreadsheet, the anonymous posts, even I could hear how quickly ridiculous could turn into dangerous. By Friday, I had an appointment with a small local attorney named Mr. Benton. He was calm, pragmatic, and didn't blink once while reading the invoice. "This is manipulative," he said simply, "and borderline extortion, depending on how he uses it." He recommended a cease and desist letter, professionally worded, referencing defamation and harassment. We sent it Monday morning. I expected that to scare him off. It didn't. By Wednesday, Logan's Instagram was full of stories about betrayal from insecure partners and men punished for being emotionally generous. His follower count spiked. People love a villain who thinks he's a victim. One story featured a screenshot of my old text. "You can't afford me either." He'd cropped it so only the words "can't afford me" showed. The comments were brutal. I didn't defend myself. I just saved screenshots, proof of narrative manipulation. That Friday, my doorbell rang. A flower delivery. Lilies, my favorite. No note. Until I checked the card slot. Inside was a folded printout of the spreadsheet. No message, just the total circled in red. That's when I started locking my gate at night. 2 weeks later, Ava texted, "You're trending." Someone had posted my anonymous Reddit story to TikTok, reading it aloud in dramatic voiceover style. It had 500,000 views under #ringtest. The comments section was wild. People dissecting entitlement, others playing detective. Some found old photos of Logan and compared timestamps. I scrolled through the chaos until I saw one comment that hit too close. "If she keeps receipts, she'll win. Always document." I smiled for the first time in weeks. Someone out there understood. Still, the storm hadn't peaked yet, because Logan wasn't done punishing me for walking away. He was just changing tactics again. The next attack wouldn't be public. It would be buried deep, under numbers and signatures, dressed up like justice. The first clue that Logan wasn't finished came as a notification, not a knock. An alert from Experian. Someone had attempted to open a jewelry store credit line in my name. At first, I thought it was a system glitch. Then I saw the email address listed on the application. Logan Pierce, official, same signature he used for brand deals, same digital fingerprint. He wasn't even careful. I forwarded everything to Mr. Benton, my attorney. He filed a fraud report with the FTC and sent copies to the credit bureaus. I changed every password, froze my credit, and sat in my living room staring at the blinking cursor of my own open document titled, "When Love Becomes Litigation." Because that's what it felt like. Not heartbreak, but paperwork. 3 days later, the story broke the internet. Someone had stitched my original anonymous Reddit post into a TikTok explainer video called "The Girl Who Got an Invoice for Love." It wasn't my voice, but it was my story, word for word. Over 1.2 million views in 48 hours. The comments were relentless. "He's giving walking lawsuit energy. Imagine billing someone for gas money because your ego ran out of fuel." The internet did what it always does, turn cruelty into content. Logan's followers dropped. Brands began quietly deleting his tags, but instead of stopping, he tried to monetize the drama, posted a series called Men Who Give Too Much. Every episode was a subtweet with lighting and hashtags, and people could see through it. Then, one morning, a letter arrived in my mailbox. Official, sealed, stamped. Small claims, court summons. Plaintiff, Logan Pierce. Defendant, Nadia Park. Claim, $3,980. Breach of implied promise of engagement. I stared until the words lost meaning. Ava read it twice, then whispered, "He's actually suing you for not marrying him." Mr. Benton laughed when I showed him the paperwork. Not the cruel laugh of mockery, but the stunned kind that only lawyers use when someone truly creative finds a new way to be foolish. He said, "Don't worry, it's baseless, but we'll show up, always show up." The hearing day was gray, like even the weather didn't want to take sides. Logan arrived in a fitted suit that looked borrowed from a magazine cover. Behind him, Diane sat stiff and silent. Victor scanned the room like a man assessing a market. When the judge asked Logan to explain his claim, he spoke with polished confidence. He said our relationship had been a mutual investment toward marriage, that I had led him to believe we were heading for engagement, and he had spent considerable funds preparing for that. The judge asked, "Do you have a written agreement?" Logan shook his head. "It was implied," he said. "Did she ever promise marriage explicitly?" He hesitated. "She talked about our future." The judge raised an eyebrow. So does everyone with a Netflix subscription. Then it was my turn. I presented the email, the invoice, the HR report, the fraud alerts, the timeline of harassment. I didn't add emotion, just facts. When I finished, the judge exhaled, slow and deliberate. Then she looked at Logan. "Mr. Pierce," she said, "relationship expenses are gifts freely given, not debts. Courts do not monetize affection. Even if they did, your conduct here demonstrates bad faith. Case dismissed." She paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "And a word of advice. Lawsuits are not instruments of revenge. Use them wisely, or don't use them at all." The sound of the gavel was the most satisfying click I'd ever heard. Better than any relay, any server switch. Logan didn't speak as he left the courtroom, but Diane's expression told a story of its own, the kind that mothers write in shame, not defense. Victor avoided my gaze entirely. Outside in the corridor, my lawyer asked if I wanted to make a public statement. "No," I said. "I just want peace." But peace doesn't come when you win against people who live for optics. It comes with quiet. And quiet, for Logan, was humiliation. That night, I got a message request on Instagram from someone named Brielle Anders. The name jolted me. Logan's ex-girlfriend, the one he used to reference like a benchmark. Her message was short. "He's done this before. With me. You're not crazy. Be careful. He learns from his father, not his mistakes." Then another. "Guard your ID. He still has your old email backup on his drive. He bragged once that he could ruin anyone's reputation with timing." I stared at the messages until the words blurred. Then I typed back, "Thank you." She saw it, heart reacted, and never replied again. Later that night, Ava asked if I felt vindicated. I didn't know what to tell her. Winning doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like less fear. I made tea, opened my laptop, and renamed the folder one last time. Evidence, survival. Because that's what it had become. Not just proof of what he did, but proof of what I'd learned. Still, something told me it wasn't over. When a man raised on control loses his audience, he doesn't retire. He rebrands. And I could already feel the next performance forming in the silence between us. For the first time in months, my phone stayed quiet for a full week. No notifications, no veiled posts, no emails pretending to be invoices. But silence, when it comes from someone like Logan, isn't peace. It's the breath they take before biting back. The next sound was my phone ringing. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer until a familiar brittle voice spoke through static. "Nadia, this is Diane Pierce, Logan's mother." My hand froze midair. She didn't waste time. Her tone was low, tired, like someone whose life had become one long damage control session. "I need to warn you," she said. "Logan's planning to file for a restraining order. He'll claim you've been harassing him online." For a moment, all I could hear was the blood in my ears. "Excuse me?" "He's saying your Reddit posts caused people to attack his business. He's compiling screenshots to make it look like you encouraged the hate." My pulse turned to ice. "That's not true." "I know," Diane said. "That's why I'm calling. I can't watch him destroy another person, not after what he did to himself." Her voice cracked on the last word, herself caught somewhere between loyalty and shame. Then she explained. After the court case, Logan's father, Victor, had cut his financial support until Logan took responsibility for his behavior. Logan, in turn, had spun a story about being slandered and losing brand deals because of me. He was convinced a restraining order would make him the victim again, and maybe, in some twisted PR way, recover his image. Diane wanted me to be prepared. She also asked something that broke whatever bitterness I still held toward her. "If we can convince him to sign a written apology and end contact, would you promise not to press identity theft charges?" I didn't answer right away. She sighed. "I just want my son to get help, Nadia. He's not well, and Victor's still whispering in his ear that perception matters more than truth." When I hung up, I didn't cry. I just opened my laptop and typed 3 words to my attorney. She warned me. Mr. Benton called within 5 minutes. His voice was brisk, steady, the voice of someone who's walked other clients through storms like this. "If she's right," he said, "we file first. That way, his version looks retaliatory, not protective." By the next morning, we'd submitted a restraining order request citing harassment, attempted fraud, false reports, and Diane's verbal warning of premeditated defamation. We attached screenshots, HR reports, the cease and desist, and a timeline that now stretched across 6 months of chaos. Filing it felt both humiliating and empowering. Humiliating because I had to detail, in legal language, every private humiliation. Empowering because I was taking the narrative back. Quietly, precisely, like resetting corrupted code. Logan was served on a Thursday afternoon. Maya, a mutual acquaintance from his influencer circle, texted that he'd gone pale when the envelope arrived. After that, nothing. No posts, no statements. His account went private. For 2 weeks, I lived in a kind of suspended relief, checking over my shoulder out of habit more than fear. Even Ava started to relax. "Maybe he's embarrassed," she said. "Maybe that's your closure." Maybe. But closure doesn't knock. It arrives in an email titled, "Pierce Family, Update." The message was from Victor. Subject line, apology, and reflection. He wrote like a man dictating a press release. "Nadia, I understand that recent events have caused you distress. While I don't condone all of Logan's choices, I believe misunderstandings on both sides escalated matters unnecessarily. Logan has agreed to therapy and a period of professional hiatus. As a father, I regret that our family values, particularly around image and success, may have been misinterpreted. For what it's worth, I hope you find peace and that you recognize we never intended harm. No sincerity, just branding." He didn't even sign it with a name, only the Pierce family. I forwarded it to Mr. Benton. He told me to ignore it, but the email sat in my inbox like a business card for hypocrisy. The hearing came 3 weeks later. Logan didn't show. His lawyer, a young man with nervous hands, stood alone before the judge. "My client agrees to a mutual no-contact order," he said, without admitting wrongdoing. Mr. Benton nodded. "We accept, as long as it's recorded that Ms. Park filed first." The judge approved. 1 year, legally documented, no contact, no communication, no indirect posts or digital mentions, no showing up where the other might be. When the gavel struck, something inside me unclenched, the knot I'd been carrying since the boutique. Afterward, I sat on the courthouse steps with a coffee that had gone cold. Ava met me there, holding a pastry like it was a peace offering. "Is it over now?" she asked. I stared at the sky. Legally, yes. Emotionally, I wasn't sure what over meant anymore. I'd learned that some people don't end stories. They pause them until an audience returns. That night, another message arrived, this one on LinkedIn, from a woman named Rebecca Lang. "You don't know me, but I was engaged to Victor Pierce years ago. We never married. I followed your story because it felt familiar." She explained that decades earlier, Victor had proposed to her with a prenup that ensured she'd walk away with nothing if they ever divorced. When she refused, he ended it overnight, citing her lack of long-term vision. Her final lines made my hands tremble. Diane agreed to the same deal I refused, and they raised Logan to believe love is a contract, not a connection. He wasn't born transactional, Nadia. He was trained. I'm not excusing him. I just wanted you to know the blueprint you were up against. I closed the message and sat for a long time, staring at the dark reflection in my screen. For the first time, I didn't feel anger toward Logan, just a deep, exhausted sadness for all of them. The Pierces hadn't built a family. They'd built a brand, and Logan was just the product that cracked under pressure. Still, pity doesn't undo damage. It just helps you finally set the broken pieces down. I just didn't know it yet.